Welcome to my American history notes, where I discuss the conclusions I've drawn from studying American history. Um, you won't agree with my conclusions, maybe none of them, but you should at least know about the things I discuss and a lot more to be just conversant in American history. So that's what my goal is to get you to study it on your own, even if it's to show me wrong. I don't matter. It doesn't matter to me. Just study it. So we're talking about the War for Independence now begins in earnest. The laws enacted by Parliament and called by the Americans the Coercive or Intolerable Acts were a direct result of the Boston Tea Party and the British government's overreaction to it. First of these acts was the Boston Port Act, which blockaded Boston until it agreed to pay for the lost tea. The Massachusetts Government and the Administrative of Justice Acts, which chastised the local government. The Quartering Act, which allowed provincial governors to quarter troops in any private home. And finally, the Act, which is about an entirely different problem, but included in the popular mind with the other coercive acts. The immediate effect of these acts was to make Massachusetts completely self governing in a bloodless insurrection that saw them elect officials and operate completely independent of the royal governor. Other colonies like Virginia and South Carolina sent food and money to the blockaded port. Then, on both sides of the Atlantic, some on the American side of the problem of authority and others not, debated the prevailing issue of who would have the authority in the colonies. Americans were torn between pride at being part of a great empire or demanding to be completely independent. And all the study of the commentary of historians on this subject, as you can surmise from what I said earlier, there is a contradiction on the subject of freedom. The Americans were a free people, more free than British citizens at home. However, the Americans' freedom was not viewed as a fundamental right by the crown, but something they enjoyed only at the crown's good pleasure, like the tenure of a colonial judge. The Americans wanted the constitutional rights of every freeborn Englishman. So while free in practice, they were not free by law into thinking of the mother country. And remember, we're only talking about white Americans now, of European descent. Think of it like this: when you were a teenager, your parents might permit your curfew to be at midnight, but it is understood that they can take that back to 9 if they so desire. Now, think about this. What if you were living in your own home, paying your own bills, and getting only a minor support from your parents, who were also getting part of your paycheck to pay for that support? And they still called you and announced that they have the right to set your curfew. What would be your response? On May 24, 1774, the Virginia Assembly drafted a resolve written by Henry, by Henry, Lee, and Jefferson, declaring the military occupation of Boston a hostile invasion, and called for the day of the Port Act's enactment, June 1st, as a day of fasting, prayer, and humiliation. Governor Dunmore dutifully disbanded the assembly, and the First Continental Congress met in Philadelphia on September 5th, 1774. The revolutionary committees of 12 colonies elected 55 members of this Congress. Conservatives who favored loyalty to Britain, called Tories, attempted unsuccessfully to thwart these elections. Men like the Rutledges of South Carolina, Joseph Galloway of Pennsylvania, and John Jay of New York were elected, and Peyton Randolph of Virginia was elected president of the First Continental Congress. And then we'll discuss that as we continue next time. Thank you for watching.